Hello and welcome to On the Wrist. Today we have the Core Timepieces Fury GMT automatic watch. This watch has a titanium case, GMT function, and has some pretty sick style. This video will be a full technical review of the watch, as well as highlight the design details, and we'll go over both the positive and negative aspects of this watch. So be sure to stick around for the full video to get the complete picture. After a quick introduction, we'll get right into it. Now before we get started, I do want to clarify that this watch was sent to me to review by Core Timepieces. It will be going back to them right after I finish the video, but I just wanted to make you all aware. Now, design detail-wise, I actually quite like the concept they're going for here. I love that there's this flame on the dial. It's raised, so it has some texture to it, really makes the dial interesting. And I also enjoy that the 24-hour marker on the bezel is a flame as well. Case shape is kind of I think that we call it kind of cushion style. It's a little rectangular. Not totally rounded, but a nice, interesting shape. And I really like the two-tone color they have on this version with the black upper portion of the bezel and the green below. The red second hand is a nice flare of color, and I do quite enjoy the visual aspect of the black stripe down the center of the bracelet. Now, let's go over some of the technical details. This watch has a diameter of 42 millimeters. The lug width is 22 millimeters. The movement is the NH34A GMT, so an automatic GMT function by Seiko. The thickness isn't listed on the website, but it looks to be about 13-14 millimeters. The crystal is a domed sapphire, and the bezel is aluminum, and the bracelet actually has quick release spring bars, which is nice for changing out straps. There is a lot of lume on this watch, and one thing I want you to note is actually the date wheel is also lumed. That's something I've never seen before, and is an interesting touch by the brand. On the back of the watch has the raised message, "Die of nothing but a passion to live." As with their other watches like the Seven Sins Quartz watch, typically they have a quote on the back that is an embodiment of the design principles that went into the aesthetics of the watch. Additionally, the watch does come with a Barton Elite silicone strap. As you can see here, it has two length sections, which will show the size in a second. Here you can see the different size section lengths that come with the strap. As you can see, the longer section is about half an inch longer, and I'll show you how that looks on my wrist. Let's transition to some wrist shots. So here we have it on the Barton band. This is the shortest one, and you can see on my 7¼ inch wrist, I'm on the last hole, and it's actually really tight. So this size would be great for someone with a much smaller wrist. But now we have it on the properly sized section, the longer portion, and this one fits quite nicely. As you can see here, I'm on about the 4th hole, so plenty of flexibility there for a larger wrist or smaller. And overall, I always love silicone straps, very comfortable on the wrist, quite like this look with the black band and the black portion of the bezel. And here we have it on the bracelet. While there are some problems that I'll talk about in just one second, I do quite like the look of the black strip down the middle. I think it really adds to the uniqueness of the design of the watch, and it pairs so nicely with that black portion of the bezel. Now, let's talk MSRP before we go over the good and the bad. MSRP for this watch is $600 US. Coming in at a fairly hefty price tag, we have to look at the features offered for the watch to determine where this sits value-wise. So, on the good side of things, this watch has a titanium case and bracelet, which those materials you don't see very often at this price point, which is a major benefit. It's got very unique style, which again, and I love this black stripe down the bracelet paired with the two-tone bezel, and the use of the Seiko NH34A GMT movement I think is a really excellent choice of movement. Seiko's using the same movement are retailing for about $475 US. So from a price point perspective, to get from the Seiko cost to here, you add in the titanium materials, you add in a sapphire crystal instead of the Seiko Hardlex, and you add some unique style. And I think with those features in mind, this sits about where I'd expect price point wise. However, there are two key issues I've found while reviewing this watch that are definitely worth considering. So I want to start with the one that actually bothers me the most, and that is, if you look at the bezel, see that light on the left where the arrow is, you can see that by some of the numbers, as I come around the bezel, that there are tool marks coming away from the numbers. These are not something that can be cleaned off, these are actually scratches in the aluminum bezel, and they really take away from the aesthetic of the watch. It's something that no matter what strap you put on it, it's always going to be there, and some of them, like especially around the 16, are really quite noticeable, and that takes away from the perception of quality on this watch. Now, moving on to the bracelet. The bracelet has a number of issues for me. while I like the visual aspect of this black paint down the middle, the actual execution of it is isn't quite there. You can see there where the arrow's pointing that the paint is unevenly applied, and it is paint. So that means that as you get this bracelet, it's going to take some time for the paint to be wiped away by the metal, to be scratched out. So to start, the bracelet will be kind of uncomfortable to wear. This might be a bit nitpicky, but for me, it's when you look at those side segments, you can see the exposed metal. And while you're not going to see this very often, for me, that's a bit of an issue. Additionally, the top portion here doesn't have paint all the way wrapped around it, so you can start to see right there where the metal shows when looking directly down. It's more evident on this side here. But let me know down in the comments below if you agree with the two issues I've found. I think the bezel issue speaks for itself, but the bracelet issue could be something where I'm being far too nitpicky. I'd love to hear what you guys think at this price point for this watch. Given the price point of this watch, if I had received this particular watch after purchasing it, I personally would have returned it because of the bezel issues. The bracelet issues I would have been disappointed about, but probably wouldn't have prompted a return, but the bezel issues are so visible that I think, for me, it would have pushed me over the edge. Now, let's talk value with respect to this watch. So, as I said before, I think the feature set offered, the specs are there for the $600 price point. For me, it's the question of quality. The watch I received had those two quality issues, which is a bit of a red flag. But if those issues weren't present, I think it would sit nicely at that price point. So it's something that if you're considering this watch, just be aware of potential some of these issues and what to look out for and inspect when you receive your watch. Let me know down in the comments below. Do you like the style of this watch? Do you find the same two issues bother you like I do? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. That's all from me today. This has been On The Wrist. Thank you for watching.